Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Move Podcast. I'm Scotty Carlisle, your host, and for the next 45 minutes, hour, maybe even 3 hours, it depends, as you're on the 91 freeway parking lot, or if you're driving home or to your girlfriend's or to work or whatever it is, and you're listening to this podcast, buckle up, be safe, and it's going to be an interesting ride. Today we have Andy Aguilar, and he has some interesting stories, and he's overcome adversity in different ways, and I want to extract some interesting stories from him. I don't know. So the bar is high, but no pressure.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So could you introduce yourself, Andy?
So, like you said, I'm Andy Aguilar. I run Next Step Academy in Corona, California. I just started the program this year, although we had a first trial in 2020 prior to COVID. And it really just came as a result of children wanting to move on from recreational baseball to something a little bit more competitive and preparing them for the discipline that's necessary for high school. I had some success in Little League, which I did as a volunteer. And based
Coaching?
Coaching. I managed for 13-year-olds. We had a really good season. I ended up managing the all-star team, and then parents were interested in continuing with a developmental program. So here we are.
So when you were a kid, did you play baseball?
Yeah, so I grew up with a baseball in my hands from the time I was 3 years old. That was my passion. I come from a lineage of baseball players. My grandpa played, my father played. So they're from Mexico. I'm the first American player in the family. But I think that I got a lot of different perspectives on the game based on my travel and the places that I've gotten to play. And it's really a beautiful game. It's a metaphor for life, I think.
I agree. Were you born here, or were you born in Mexico?
I was born in Santa Barbara here.
Oh, okay.
My dad was studying his PhD over at UC Santa Barbara, so that's when I came into the picture.
Oh, got it.
Yeah.
So your dad is a smart kid.
Yes, he is.
And so you came over here, and then what is he doing now?
Well, he actually just took a job at Texas A&M. He's going to be the president of mechanical engineering at that college, I believe.
Oh, so he's a real smart kid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And he was born in Mexico.
Yes, Mexico City.
Mexico City. And so I know we've talked briefly about your trips, and so I know you've been to Mexico City. We'll get into that. So you have a pretty good relationship with your dad?
Yeah, I would say so.
And is he still involved in baseball at all, or?
Not really. He lends a hand to the academy every now and then. He was an assistant coach when I coached in Little League, but with his workload at his job, he doesn't have much free time.
Yeah, engineering. You got to be a damn smart kid for engineering. Going to USC when we had different startups, and there's a lot of different contests, and you have people that are doing pitch competitions.
Mm-hmm.
90% of the people that would win the money are people that actually had an engineer that was involved. So if you didn't have an engineer, you're probably not going to win. That's just the way it works.
Yeah,
so
I'm sure.
Very important people. So your dad, when he played baseball, what did he do?
He was a pitcher for the most part, especially as he grew up. But he was a switch hitter too when he was younger. He didn't become or specialize into a pitcher until he was about 16, 17. And he did that as he was studying his undergraduate degree too. So he was playing semi-pro ball in Mexico City.
Oh, wow. And how old was he when he had you?
He was 28, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. You have other siblings?
I do. I have a younger brother and a younger sister.
Okay, so you were the first.
Yeah, actually, you'll see my younger sister sometimes at our practices.
Ah,
Yeah.
Okay. Very cool, man. And so growing up, 3 years old, you had a glove and you were throwing the ball, and then when did you first get involved in actually playing?
When I was 5 for T-ball, right away. Yeah, and I never stopped. I just went all the way through. I would say I didn't get very competitive until I was 9, which was my first taste of travel ball. And so I saw the difference between recreational baseball and competitive baseball at that time.
Yeah. And how old are you right now?
24.
24. Okay, so still, I mean, 15 or what, 11 years? No, 9. I can't. What is, how many years ago was that?
90 when I was 9.
Yeah, when you were 9.
13.
13 years.
Yeah.
So not that long, but I
Sorry,
know.
no, 15 years ago. What am I saying? We're both struggling.
Usually I'm pretty good with math, but right now, so I know that over the last few years, what travel ball has even blew up to a different level than before.
Yeah.
But travel ball 15 years ago, at 9 years old, yeah, and if you started at 9, then yeah, I could see that you've definitely been doing that for a while and focused. Now, give me a taste of what it was like being in a travel ball team. Being that young.
Well, most travel ball teams stem from an all-star team at the recreational level, which was the case on the team that I played on. And for the most part, when you first start, it's not easy. These teams that are in travel ball, they practice 3 times a week together. They've probably been doing it for years at a time. So our first tournament, I think we lost 20-0 a couple times. And it took months of
20-0.
Yes, 20-0.
Yeah. That's a lot.
And that's a common story in travel ball for new teams. And so it takes a lot of time to gel as a team and to learn the differences between recreational baseball and just having fun and trying to be competitive and learning the details of the game. I fell in love with it at that level at 9 years old, and I had a tough time going back to recreational baseball because I remember getting frustrated that those details weren't really tended to or worried about. So when I started coaching, that's something that I wanted to bring into Little League. And obviously you work with all sorts of talent, but with your more talented players, you want to teach them those details so that they have a chance when they try out for high school. The problem that I see at the high school level nowadays is if you didn't play travel ball, if you don't have a taste of that competitive nature, they don't really bother with taking raw talent, if that makes sense. They want somebody who's schooled in the game. And so I just want to give as many kids an opportunity. Unfortunately, travel ball is dependent on money a lot of the times. And so less fortunate children aren't able to get access to that level of coaching. So I'm hoping to change that.
Why did you even get into coaching?
It started as a joke, honestly. My buddy and I, we were talking. I had umpired in Little League for years, and so I saw, the level that they had. And we were joking, what if we start a team, and what if we coach and teach them the stuff that we were taught at that age. And so I remember just talking to him. I think it was at a restaurant, and we just said, well, let's take a team and let's see what happens. And so I started in the fall, and we had a good season. That's more of practice ball, really. It's not as competitive as spring. And so after that, I liked the coaching aspect of it and working with children at that age. So I said, I'll take the spring team too. And that's when we went undefeated that season.
So the first season you coached, you went undefeated?
Yeah, the first official spring season, we went undefeated. We tied one game. I have to throw that in there. We did tie one game, but we went undefeated, and then I got the privilege to coach the all-star team, and we had a good run as well. We made it to the state tournament, I believe.
Damn. Now, when did you stop playing? Did you play through high school? Did you play any college ball yourself, or what was your evolution of game?
Yeah, so I played my freshman and sophomore year over at Centennial. I ran into a string of injuries after that, and I think it was just overuse, to be frank. That's another aspect of travel ball, which is, you have to err on the side of caution when you're young and not overuse your arm or play 6 games in a weekend, which is what I was doing. I used to be a catcher and a pitcher, so I did a lot at a young age, and that came back to bite me as I turned 16, 17. I had arm problems. I tore my labrum, had to get surgery. So, and I've seen that with a lot of the people that I grew up playing with. You just get to a point where your body starts holding you back.
What was that like when did you have any desires or goals to play professional ball or college ball, or what was your like when you got hurt, what was your reaction to that? Was it not a big deal because you're like, I'll get over it, or was it,
Well, I think anybody who plays at that level at such a young age has those dreams, and you aspire to go as far as you can in the game. For me, it was kind of a wake up call. I had heard you got to take care of your arm, you got to ice, you have to stretch properly, and I would, but sometimes I wouldn't, and I think I wasn't the most disciplined in that aspect, and that's what resulted in injuries down the line. So that's part of what I try to incorporate in my coaching is making sure that you take care of your body. We do a lot of conditioning, stretching. I always, bug my pitchers to the point of annoying them about icing after they pitch, and it's precisely because of that. One thing that I've seen also in Little League, when you're a pitcher and you're throwing off-speed pitches at a certain age, you start throwing curveballs and sliders. The way that you learn how to throw them can really affect how your arm develops because you're still growing at that age. And so I try to teach, what I was taught from the coaches that I really respected, the former pros or former collegiate athletes. And so I think that can definitely contribute to your longevity because if you're throwing the curveball the wrong way or you don't know exactly what the consequences could be, then you're more likely to suffer one of those injuries in high school. And so I don't want that to happen to the players like it did to me.
Now, was there any injury that completely took you out of the game that there was a point where you're like, that it hit you like, it's not gonna, like, I'm not gonna be able to be that professional player, or was there a point that it hit you like that?
So it happened kind of back to back. My sophomore year, I had a really bad elbow injury, and it seemed like it was chronic tendonitis. So even when it got better, I would throw a whole game, and all of a sudden it would start bugging me again. And so trying to pitch through that was tough. And by the end of that year, I kind of realized I'm not going to be able to at least throw 7 innings, maybe as a reliever. But the more that progressed, the more I realized that's just not going to last more than 5-10 years, even if I try to go down that route. So then I turned my attention to hitting, and when I tore my labrum, the doctor pretty much told me even after this surgery, you're not gonna be the same. It's gonna be very tough to recover fully. Now, some people do it, and so I don't want that to discourage anybody who has that injury. You can have a full recovery and come back. A lot of pros do. But at 17 years old, to begin with, hitting wasn't really my strong suit, and then after that injury, it was a real struggle. So at that point, I realized I'm not going to make it to the pros. I kind of saw that developing, but even the college level, I started to turn my attention more to like the academic side of things, which was also a sacrifice that sometimes I look back and regret, putting so much attention on baseball when I was my first couple years in high school and not focusing so much on the grades. I think that you have to have a balance, and so that's part of what we try to incorporate too in Next Step Academy is make sure that you're taking care of the other things. Baseball is important, but we try to develop the individual as a balanced individual and not just pressure them into feeling like they have to make it or that's the only route.
Now, did you see any athletes come in that picked up baseball late and ended up doing well with it, or was it pretty much everybody that made the team had been playing since they've been 5 years old and all the way through, or did anybody ever come in that had some talent and actually you were able to, or they were able to take that and develop it into something that did well?
Yeah, actually, surprisingly, a lot of those kids that come in at 10 years old, maybe 8 years old, they have a 3-5 year delay in starting the game. They end up going further because they don't have that wear and tear, especially if we're talking about travel ball players. Playing 6 games, 7 games a weekend can wear on your body, and I know that there's a lot of studies on that right now and seeing if that's really the best idea. I've kind of subscribe to the school of thought of playing multiple sports is probably the best way to go. I think as an athlete, developing multiple skills will correlate into whatever your strong suit is, if it's baseball or football. just giving your body some time to rest, especially in sports like baseball where you're constantly throwing, or football where if you're getting hit, giving your body some time to rest, and picking up other skills while you rest. Your arm, for example. That'll benefit in the long run. And so going back to your question of 10-year-olds, I think the kids that come in later to play the game, they have that fresh kind of passion. They don't get worn down by the competitiveness necessarily. That atmosphere can wear on you over time. I know a lot of kids that had a lot of potential, and by the time they got to high school, they just didn't want to play anymore, whether that be their parents or their coaching. So we try to keep an atmosphere that's uplifting and encouraging for the players. We don't ever want to wear on a player and make him feel like he has to perform or we're depending on him to, succeed. We want them to be happy with their progress.
Yeah. It's totally a balance. So I joined the military right out of high school, and then after I got out is when I went to college. And I decided, for whatever reason, I wanted to dive, like off a springboard, And so I walked on, and the coach looked at me like, so you haven't really... I said, well, I dove my last year in high school, and, but this was after I got out of the military, right? So they're like, you sure you know what... You don't have... And I'm like, I want to do it. I want to do it. And, okay, yeah, show up on this day. And then so I showed up in Speedos. Man, that was the worst part of diving. Because if you're not used to wearing Speedos and you got to put Speedos on, they're freaking uncomfortable.
Right.
And so I show up and I'm like, all right. And then so she's like, okay, go jump off the board, and so I walk and I jump and I land like way in the middle of the pool. And then she's looking at me like, dude, you really, yes, you can come back, but most of the divers have been diving for a long time, and but I'm really hard-headed, and I'm like, not Bruce Lee, David. Nope, that was the second one. My third hero was Greg Louganis when I was a kid.
Okay.
Because in Wilcox, Arizona, one stoplight town, is where I'm from, there was nothing else to do, but there was a pool. So in the summer, growing up, I was there before the pool opened, and I was there after it closed. And I would bug the shit out of all the lifeguards. They either loved me or freaking hated me. Okay. And so, but I would do things that even they wouldn't try, like put a shirt on and I'd go off the high dive and then just try to spin as many times as I could until I hit. Because, my brothers always beat me up, so I was tough and I didn't really care.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, no, I want to dive, And so I have this opportunity, and they're like, well, I don't know if you should do this, but no, I want to do it. So I decided, no, I'm gonna freaking do it. I can work hard, and I can learn, and I can be as good as anybody else. I promise you. Just give me like a month, or And so I would show up before practice, and I would do, just do all kinds of stuff. Well, what ended up happening is the first year I sucked ass. I ended up hurting myself more diving than my whole wrestling career. I wrestled since 5th grade and all the way, and then I also wrestled in college. And diving, I hurt myself more, and it's weird, and it's scary, man, because if you do this, and then it hurts. So whatever. Long story short, the second year diving, I ended up breaking both of the 1 meter and 3 meter records, but there was another guy, and where this long story is coming back to is he was a diver, and he had dove since he was like 8 years old. Mm-hmm. And so when I came on, he was doing all the crazy dives, right? But growing up, he got burnt out because his parents, they just threw it down his throat, like dive. Sure. Now he gets to college, and yes, he has the scholarship, and he's doing dives, but his mind wasn't in it because he had been like forced to dive for so long. But he was really athletic and he was really talented, but the drive, kind of just
dwindled away.
Yeah, dwindled away. And so, but for me, it was like, oh no, I have this whole new world to explore, and I'm gonna push myself, and I'm going for it,
Yeah.
And so the rate of my development was astronomically different than his because he was already good, and he was like, nah, burn out, and I wasn't. So my question is, so I agree with you on that whole doing other sports, because you do some of this and you do some of this and you develop skills from this that will help you with this.
Right.
But it's not the same thing being thrown down your, forced down your throat.
Right.
So I like that. I think that's a good idea. Now, is it possible? Okay, so I've talked to my son, because I know he's got an arm. Like, I play out there and he throws it hard. But when and he's what, 13 or 14? 13. He's 13. 13? Okay. So so my question, so he comes on board and I'm telling him, hey, you should try pitching. He's like, Dad, I don't really want to pitch. I'm like, but if you pitch, I'm like, you don't have to. Do whatever you want. I'm not going to push it. But if you try to pitch, you can develop, and I would imagine that you could probably develop, even though you're coming in late, skills that maybe you're not going to be a pitcher. Maybe you're going to stay out in center field, or maybe it is shortstop. But if you do pitching now, maybe you're going to develop a better arm than what you're going to have. Now, if you have somebody like that was going to develop that, like a center fielder that practices pitching, mm-hmm. would you say that is bad or good? Like, would you say if you want to be a center fielder, don't mess with pitching, or would you say try it and develop? I'm just curious. What's your thought on that?
I think that developing the mechanics of pitching is beneficial to everybody. I think some of the drills that we do it with all the players, even if they're not pitchers, and it's just so that they can get a better feel for their own body. How the mechanics of using your body to generate momentum instead of just trying to use your arm. Can increase your speed and your accuracy if you're working on it and honing those skills. So one of the drills that we do are flat ground drills, which are technically for pitchers, where they're in the pitching pose and they have their what we call their scale with both arms, their glove hand and their throwing arm, and they rock back and forth and use their momentum, and then they turn with their hips to deliver without using their legs necessarily. But what we're trying to get them to feel there is how their body works as a spring. So even if you're not a pitcher, if you're a center fielder, if you're a third baseman, those mechanics can help you in the field when you're making your throws, because you're not just throwing with all of your arm. You're using your entire body to try to generate that momentum and that velocity, which I think obviously contributes to longevity as well, because I see a lot of kids in high school pitching with just their arms, or not using their legs properly. And so building from the ground up and getting those mechanics and really getting the kids to feel their body more so than anything else, and feel the difference between throwing with your arm and throwing with support, is beneficial, because they'll incorporate that in how they throw anywhere on the field.
So, and some of these exercises you've developed when you were coaching the Little League, or are these things that you were taught yourself?
Yeah,
or?
These were things that I was taught, and like I said, I've been fortunate enough to not only play baseball stateside but also in Mexico, and so I've gotten to see multiple different perspectives on coaching and pitching drills, and so I've just kind of taken what I think is best, or what made most sense for me, and I try to teach that to the boys and hopefully help them develop the same way that I was developed. And now with my perspective on injury, that's really the focus for me, is how can I prevent injury for these kids as they develop, as they grow. And so I think using your body instead of just throwing with your arm is huge. A lot of kids with big arms like to use it. Of course they do. They like to throw hard. I was one of those kids too, but looking back, I should have been paying more attention to working from the ground up and not just trying to depend on a good arm.
Now, sometimes we're too damn hard-headed, though. Like,
Sure.
People probably told you that.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah, they did.
And isn't that funny, right?
It is.
And now it's like, shit, now that you're old enough and you have your own experience, you look back and you're like, son of a bitch, I wish I would have listened.
Sure.
Right? So I guess the question is, how do we get kids to listen and now, the kids that you're coaching, so they're not going to make the same mistake you made and overdo it and, build from the ground up. And I guess that's what we're all trying to search for. How can we make the impact? How can we help people not make the same mistakes we did?
Yeah, well, I think my age kind of benefits there. I think I can relate to the kids in a way that most coaches I couldn't relate to when I was a kid. Most of them are dads or helpers. I didn't really have a coach that was young that could tell me less than 10 years ago, this is what happened to me. I'm trying to tell you for your own good. I'm not trying to hold you back. I want you to be as good as you can be. I want you to use the big arm, but just use it correctly. And so I've seen some success with that from that perspective, and the rest of the coaching staff for the most part is also under 30 years old. So I think we can relate to the players in a way that most coaches don't, and not by any fault of their own, just that age gap between father and son, and so I think we come at it as like a big brother, and so I think you're a little more receptive to your big brother than you are to your dad sometimes. So it sits better, and they can take it, for what it is, and not just take it as an annoying comment from a coach or a dad.
So tell me a little bit about your assistant coaching staff.
So one of my assistant coaches is my best friend Chris. We grew up playing baseball together in high school, and now he works on speed and agility. That's one of his pursuits. He wants to be a trainer, so he's using this as experience in that field. Another one of our coaches is Greg Moody. He's been a volunteer at the local Little League for years, and I developed a relationship with him as an umpire and then later as a coach. His son, Jake, who's 16 or 17 years old, is also a volunteer. He's a former pitcher, so he helps us with a lot of the boys, and again, he's young, so they can relate to him, look at him like a big brother. And we're adding coaches at the moment as we start to expand into multiple age groups, but that's been the core group of coaches from the beginning. And so I think they all give us different perspectives on the game, but we all have the same attitude of being uplifting, encouraging, and understanding that for a lot of these players it's their first time playing at this competitive level. And so we all have a lot of patience, and we just want to see them develop, not only as baseball players, but as young men as well.
Do you ever see taking any of these teams to Mexico City or to anywhere else?
That would be a dream of mine down the line. I think right now, just with the budget that we have, that's probably not in the picture, but down the line, that's something that I've always dreamed of. I grew up playing in Mexico City over the summers, and so a lot of the times over there I would notice the difference in privileges or lack of privileges that those players have. They would share the same 4 helmets, maybe a couple bats, and so that gave me a different perspective coming back to the United States and playing travel ball here, where every kid has a $300 bat and their own helmet and a brand new glove. And sometimes the talent over there was better than here. So it has nothing to do with your equipment. It's just, that drive and that desire. And so that would inspire me as I was 12, 13 years old, going over there. I still have some friends over there. And so down the line, I would like to set up a tournament where we can play teams like that so that these kids can get that perspective too. Not only to see, that talent is separate from income, but also to be a little bit more grateful for the situation that they have as I was at that age.
Wow, perspective. Do you still have relationships of people that are involved in baseball in Mexico City?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some former players that I grew up playing with that now they continue playing in semi-pro leagues, or they still have ties with the local little leagues where we used to play at. So it's cool to go over there and catch up with them from time to time and check in how they're doing.
What would you need in order to organize a trip to Mexico to play Little League with one of their local Little Leagues?
It would probably be some sort of sponsorship, maybe a facility, a complex that's facilitated for us to go play at. I'm not really sure about the permits that would be required, or how difficult it would be for everybody to get their passports. I see it being easier on across the Mexican border than here, just because it's easier for us to get passports to Mexico than it is vice versa. But that would require some sponsorship, because it is an expensive project trying to coordinate all of those trips, especially considering Mexico City is not necessarily close to the border. So incorporating maybe some little leagues from Tijuana, and then also inviting teams from Mexico City to take that flight, and figuring out a way to pay for that flight and for our travel as well. So that's a project that I've wanted to put together, and not just with Mexico, but internationally. But that's something that's going to be down the line. It's going to take some work and coordination.
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with a dream, right? And then the second step is to put it out there. And that's why I'm asking. I'm going to pull that shit out of you, because it is possible that somebody is listening to this, or will listen to this at some point, that maybe had a windfall and that loved baseball. Maybe they didn't get to do what they wanted to do, but they can turn around and help and bless others and help, So you just never know, man. I've seen crazy things happen where the underdog came out like the champ, like got put in a pile of shit and came out smelling like roses. And I feel like that we never know what's going to happen if we put it out there, that it is very possible for our dreams to come true and make other dreams come true.
Sure.
So where else would you play besides Mexico City? Tijuana, Mexico. Where else? What other countries?
Oh, other countries. I think the Dominican's a beautiful place, just given that seems to be the heart of baseball right now. Incorporating countries like Cuba, who's always had a passion for baseball, or if we're dreaming, then Japan, right? They have a different culture out there for baseball, but I think it's fascinating the things you're seeing from players like Shohei Ohtani and formerly Ichiro and big names like that. So I think just taking the game of baseball and seeing the different cultures that have developed around the world is a really cool perspective on not only the game but life itself, and how human beings can develop in different ways, and it's still a beautiful thing, the culture that they develop.
I agree. I think, in society right now, and all of the bullshit with racism this, and black this, and white this, and Republican this, and conservative this, and vaccinated or non-vaccinated, and mask and non-mask, and every freaking way that we can be divided, we're divided. And people get caught up in their identity. Whatever you identify as. If you identify as an American baseball player, right, then you're going to focus on everything that is going to make you feel validated as an American baseball player.
Sure.
And I feel like when we give people the opportunity to see the other side of the spectrum, like your example of going to Mexico is perfect, because you saw that they only had 4 helmets,
Sure.
or 3 bats that the whole damn team used, and they were probably happy about it. They probably didn't, most of them probably, I would imagine, they made it, and their focus was on hitting the ball. It wasn't on what the bat was, right? Because at the end of and that's how I think baseball can go over into symbolize life, because if you focus on the wrong things, you're going to have results that reflect your decisions and your focus. If you focus on the bat and not hitting the ball, you can have the nicest bat and it don't matter.
Right.
You can focus on having a great glove and it don't matter. You can focus on yourself, right? And I'm going to try to be the best I can and screw everybody else. But then the results are going to reflect that. And if people, and so I really like what you're doing, and I think that you have a good opportunity to actually make an impact on people's lives and getting them young and hopefully instilling some basic values and work ethic and drive and perspective and all of those things that you're doing, I think is going to make kids better people. And then in turn is going to make you a better person. And so I think it's cool. And that's why I wanted to get you in here, not only to talk about the Next Step Academy, but also to get a feel from your personal experience and perspective, because not everybody gets to go to Mexico to play.
Right. Yeah.
I would have freaking loved to do that.
Yeah, and I didn't realize that until I was older. I kind of noticed the lack of perspective that a lot of Americans have, just given that they don't really travel outside of the country for the most part. And so I think just bringing that perspective into the academy or whatever it is I do helps bring a balance, I think. At least in my life, I have perspective in the sense that I know I'm privileged. And so I try to let others know, hey, regardless of what your situation here is in the States, you have it better than 99% of the rest of the world. And so that I think that's a lesson that I value now that I didn't really understand or know how to value back then. But as I get older, I see that that's huge. And so if you have the opportunity to travel, you should, and you should see how the rest of the world lives. And I think it really helps your development as a human being just in general. Seeing how others struggle and how others are grateful for their situation, even though it might not be as good as yours necessarily. And it just makes you more grateful for what you have.
So my mind is racing for a bunch of questions I have, but when it comes to being what's the word I'm looking for? Let's say, I guess an all-around good athlete. Forget good. Great athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Exceptional athlete. What is your idea? How can I best articulate this? Values. When it comes to values, how would you rate values of appreciation, accountability, and talent and work ethic?
Yeah.
So those four things are kind of like pillars where I'm thinking are pretty damn important. And if there's anything I missed, what do you as far as appreciation, talent, work ethic, and what was the fourth one?
Accountability.
Accountability. One of those minor details. What are your opinion? Maybe elaborate on some of those.
Yeah, so I think work ethic's huge, and that's something that you'll hear from every coach, regardless of your talent. Hard work beats talent every day if you give it enough time. And so finding a way to keep that drive, to keep working hard as you develop, and even if you're having success, keep working hard because somebody's working harder. And so if you have that kind of drive to wake up, go to the gym, and take the extra reps after practice, it'll show. I lived that myself. When I put my foot on the gas and I worked really hard, then the results would be there. And when I didn't, then they wouldn't. And so I think that's something that kids don't really see at a young age, and it takes failure to really realize that. And some people can't bounce back from that failure. So that kind of ties in with accountability and being able to assess yourself and say, well, why did I fail and what was missing? And so, again, if you can turn that frustration into drive to work hard, then you're going to have success as an athlete. If that frustration brings you down, then it's going to be hard to recover. Something else that I think is really important, and maybe it ties in with appreciation, is just also keeping a clear mind and being balanced as an individual. Regardless of how much you love the game or how much you think you're going to go all the way in the game, don't let it consume you. You got to, still appreciate your family, still take your vacations, diet, but still, give yourself some time to appreciate life. Because if you become consumed with the game, then if an injury pops up or if, You just don't make it for whatever reason that can really wear you down as an individual. And the game is supposed to make you better as a person. I don't think it's supposed to be your entire life, even though it can become that for some people. I think it's important to maintain a balance. Even if you're an elite athlete, just appreciate all aspects of life and give yourself time away from the game as well to give you a different perspective on the game.
Sounds like good advice. Do you have any statistics on how many people actually, what as a percentage, make it to a major league or professional player?
I don't know exactly, but it's less than like 1%, I'd say. From all the people that sign up to play baseball in the first place, especially if you're looking at it internationally, it's less than 1%. So if you're playing baseball to become a pro, I don't think you're going to make it. I think you should play baseball because you love it and because you appreciate what it teaches you, even if you don't really realize the lessons at the moment. If you just love the environment, you love being with your friends or your teammates and the camaraderie that the sport builds, I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned from the game, and you won't necessarily understand them until you're older. But if you're having fun doing it, just enjoy the game. And like I said, don't let it consume you.
Damn, we can relate that to so many things in life. So instead of a baseball player, maybe a baseball student. Students,
Sure.
Be a student of the game. Be open-minded, so you can be the best player out there, but be the best student, best player that you can be. And I don't know, I think that with any sport, with any job, with any project, with anything that you do, I think, so for example, I bought it in 1998.
Wow.
And that was, 23 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Holy crap, I'm getting old. But I've had that guitar for 23 years, and the guy who sold it to me was like, "Oh yeah, you want him to have it with just one where you don't have like a layer. It's just all, I don't know, whatever it was." He's like, "This is the top of the line. You want to get this?" And it was like $350, and for me that was a lot of money at the time.
Sure.
I had just joined the Army, and and he's like, "But it'll last forever, and the longer you have it, the better it gets." And I was like, "All right, cool, I'll get it." Well, at the time I bought it, the reason I bought it is because I wanted to be a good guitar player.
Right.
I wanted to be like the guy at the party that can play the guitar, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be the cool guy. And I got it, and usually with things I pick stuff up quick, or I have in the past. And I picked this damn thing up, and trying to learn to strum and then hold down the strings and then move from this string to that string and not sound like an idiot. Holy crap, that was very, very difficult. And so what happened was I sucked, and I never got better because the reason I got it, and I was the wrong reason. I wanted it.
Right.
I wanted to have this musical instrument so I could be cool or look cool. And the results were I sucked, and I did not look cool. It was the exact opposite, right? But I kept it because I'm like, at some point maybe I'll want to pick it up again. And so I did. And then it's very interesting the results I got when I switched from wanting to be a good guitar player to wanting to play and express and create sound, create music, just create something. And what I found was when I had that mindset where I was just playing and I didn't have pressure on myself because I wanted to be good, but I was just a student and I was exploring the sound, exploring my body, exploring the way that it moved and how the sounds emanated. I got better faster because I didn't get disenfranchised because I was not living up to my expectations.
Right.
So my expectations were just switched. I wanted to be good. I wanted to express myself. And then and that made all the difference. So I think, again, baseball is another example of that, where kids can come in, and if they're trying to be the good baseball player, like we all want to be good baseball players, that I think anybody that plays wants to be good, right?
Sure.
Nobody wants to look like a dumbass. So, But I think if we can instill that it's being a student of the game and play with your passion because you want to be better and you want to test yourself and you want to, if we can instill that, I think it's going to make a big difference as well. But it seems like that is exactly how you come across. And so I think that, when my son came to your practice, I gave him the option. I'm like, hey, there's a travel ball team. You can go play with the travel ball team. And he could have. And he's like, no, I want to go over here because you made an impression on him. That's exactly why he did. Because how you held yourself, how you communicated, you showed him that you have a lot of knowledge, and you showed him that he can learn from you. And that's an important thing. And so I think what you said about your age, I think that definitely helps. I think that shows why you were successful when you were coaching the Little League. And I think it shows why you're going to be successful doing what you're doing now here in Next Step Academy. Mm-hmm. So let's say my kid hasn't played baseball before. And let's say he's in 8th grade. So I don't know, what is that, 12 years old?
Yeah.
What if my kid has liked baseball but has never really played? 12 years old, would you say that's too late, or would you say you could do something with a kid like that?
We could do something with a kid like that, and even if we don't develop him into a star baseball player, we'll develop his athletic ability and his persona, I think, just in the sense of, the accountability, the discipline, being with the team and being held responsible to the rest of the team. That's one of the values that we instill in the program is, if you're going to slack off, then you're not going to be the only one that pays for it. The whole team will. And so doing things as a group will really, I think, like, again, it's a metaphor of life. If at your job you're the one slacking, you're not going to be the only one that suffers. The whole company will suffer. And so that level of accountability at that age, I think, is really important, because a lot of kids that don't play team sports don't have that perspective on life or on work necessarily. So I've had a few kids where, after a couple of practices of slacking off and the whole team having to run, they change, and that change happens quickly. And I don't think it's just a change on the baseball field, but they get the big picture of, okay, I can't be that individual. I have to, think bigger than just myself. And so I think that's just one of the values that kids can learn, even if they don't go on to be very, great baseball players. They'll pick up some values that are important for the rest of their life.
Yeah, I guess humility, huh? That's
right.
That's an important one.
Yeah, especially at the higher levels of baseball, that can get forgotten quickly. You can buy into the ego, and I think humility is important to remember. Give yourself perspective.
I think that's probably one of my biggest attributes that I look up to in people. Somebody that has made it to world-class level. Like, I always think of Tim Ferriss. Do you know who Tim Ferriss is?
No.
Okay, so he was a wrestler back in the day. Ended up going to I don't know if it was Princeton or Stanford. So he's a smart kid too, and he does all of these different experiments on himself. So he practices on himself before he preaches, which I think that's cool. And he has been an investor in like Twitter, and he was like so he's had some kick-ass investments, perfect timing, has some friends that are, have more money than me, definitely. But he is a very humble person, very freaking humble, and he always is like, yeah, I could be wrong in this. And when he talks to people, he's a smart guy, but he's always very humble in what he does. So I think, like, of my top people in life that I know, and even personally, like my mom's husband Gene, my sister's husband Brian, like these people that I look up to that are so awesome. Like, one of their determining traits, or one of their biggest traits, is humility. And I think that I wish more people had humility. I think we wouldn't have problems with racism and with just bullshit. You know, you're a conservative and I'm a liberal, or whatever, because I'd look at you like, who are you? I wouldn't be like, oh, yeah, I'm arrogant and I'm better than you because you're dumb and I'm smart, you know?
Right.
Because it's funny, I see that on both sides, right? Of whatever the fence is, you know, all the snide comments of like, well, did you know how, you know, and it's like, there are smart people on both sides, and if people could just realize that they don't have the whole story, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
Like, no matter what, I think being a human is you don't have the whole story, whether it's religion, whether it's color, whether it's political affiliation, whatever the hell it is. Like, you don't have the whole story. People are smart on the other side, and we're all just trying to do the best we can with what we got. So, but I think that you are putting that into practice, and I think it's damn cool, man. And if there's any way that I can help, or, you know, be a part of whatever it is, that's why I wanted you to come and talk, so we could, you know, see if there's anything that I can help you, help others, or, you know, whatever it is.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate it. And again, I think the humility thing is all about perspective too. Just having, you know, the ability to accept other people's thoughts and views on life. So I appreciate it, you know, the opportunity to come here and talk to you, and, you know, the help that you've already helped us out with at the Academy. Again, I think that habit of giving and not expecting to get back, it's like you said, it pays off in the long run. And so that's what I got from coaching. I did it as a volunteer, and now here we are with the Academy, and looking to keep moving forward.
Man, that's some deep stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, volunteer. You know, and it encapsulates what the Move podcast is about. Move is an acronym. M is to make a difference in other people's lives.
Mm-hmm.
O is to offer up your time, your talents, and your gifts. The V is to find victory in the small things, and that's like humility. That's like perspective. And no matter how bad you think the situation is, just there's something that you can appreciate in it. And E is encourage others. And so you are moving. What you are doing is move, and it's cool to see. And I 100% agree that when you do that, when you move, that you will get back tenfold what you put into it. And so don't expect things from people when you do things for people. Do it out of the kindness of your heart.
Right.
And if you do that, it may not okay, I gotta share another story, because this is so I started this thing in my, like, it's called the Move Chronicles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably gonna name it something else, but what it was is helping people, right, doing something for the benefit of others, and then carrying that through and try to see what kind of benefits come back from you. Because sometimes, I was actually flying to Mexico City. Okay. My best friend at the time got killed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and he's from Mexico City, and it was in Mexico City. And his mom, it was just him and his mom and his sister. His mom doesn't speak any English. His sister, a little bit of English. And so when this whole thing had happened, it was horrible, man. It was freaking horrible. But I decided to go stay with his mom for a week. And that was interesting, because my Spanish is a no bueno. And so there was a lot of very awkward, uncomfortable moments when I'm sitting on this side of the table, his mom is sitting on that side of the table, and it's just us, and we're trying to communicate, and that was an experience.
Sure.
But flying there, I'm sitting on in my seat. The flight attendant is coming up with the little cart pushing, and she's selling, whatever it was. There was a lady, a Mexican lady, probably 6 seats in front, like over to by the window, and she's pushing, and then she's like saying that she wanted some chips. Well, the problem was on this that they needed a card, but the lady didn't have a card. And so the flight attendant's like, well, you have to have a card. And she's like, no. And then but I'm paying attention. And when the flight attendant got to me, I said, hey, I want to buy that lady those chips. Whatever she wanted, just go ahead and give it to her and I'll pay for it. She's like, are you sure? I'm like, yeah, just chips. Whatever, $3 probably on the thing. And so she goes and she gives the lady the chips. And she said, it's from that man over there, right? And the lady is like, looks at me. Is like, phew, and gave me a dirty look, but she ate the chips.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like very entertaining. I said, and then the person that I was sitting next to, I'm like, she didn't seem very, very thankful that I bought her those chips. Like, she gave me a dirty look.
Yeah.
But then she still ate the chips. Then the flight attendant was like, I cannot believe she's acting like that. She's like, you know what? What are you drinking? I'm like, Jack and Coke. She's like, you know what?
On the house.
Yeah, guess what? Guess how many Jack and Cokes I had to Mexico City. Guess how many I paid for? I had probably 6.
Yeah.
Like, because I was having fun. And then what ends up happening is I start talking to the person in front of me who has a nonprofit, right? And I was telling them about the My Unsung Hero, and then I was talking to the flight attendant, and the flight attendant was involved. So it was an amazing flight. I made a couple good friends. I don't know how many, and those Jack and Cokes are a lot more expensive than chips, right?
Yeah, they are.
So even though I was directing help to this person, they were like, right? Man, that's not normal. You think you're going to help somebody, they're going to be appreciative.
Right.
Guess what, folks? They're not always appreciative. And if you help somebody, that doesn't mean they're going to say, oh, thank you very much. No. They could be like, F you, get out of my face. I don't appreciate it, right? But don't let that stop you. Because just because you put good stuff in the universe this way doesn't mean it's going to come back this way.
Right.
So that whole situation with me, it went this way and it came all the way back around, and it was tenfold, but it emanated from a completely different angle.
Right.
And so the Move podcast, moving, the acronym MOVE, everything that it represents, by putting it into motion, by moving, you are creating more benefit for yourself, but it may not come back from that direction. It might come back from a different direction.
Yeah.
So I am a firm believer that what you're doing is going to create ripple effects, and there will be a tsunami of benefit that's going to land right on top of your head.
Well, even if it doesn't, I think I already appreciate, the instant gratification that I get from coaching the kids and, seeing them improve. So regardless of the secondary benefits down the line, it's a joy, and it's not really a job. It's just a lot of fun, especially doing it with my best friend and starting from the ground up. It's been a blast.
Andy Aguilar, the Next Step Academy. If somebody wanted to reach out, where would they find you?
You can call my cell phone, 951-532-8910, or email nsawolfpack@gmail.com.
Why Wolfpack?
I did a little research on team names, and I forgot what website it was, but I saw that Wolfpack, something about the camaraderie of how they function just as an animal. I thought it would be cool. And it went with a lot of the values that I have as a coach, and so I figured that's a cool name, cool logo. Let's go with it.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
Okay, Andy, thank you for your time, and hopefully you guys have made it to your destination. Hopefully you're not still sitting on the freeway. And again, thank you. I love you, but I gotta leave you, and we'll talk to you next time. The Move Podcast. I'm your host. Or I try to be, at least. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you.
Cool, man.